Welcome, Zach from 32 Beat Writers to the program. First time the 32 Beat Writers have appeared, and this is the right time. I mean, we are recording this at the beginning of August. This is the time that you're going to be paying the most attention to beat writers, and 32 Beat Writers has started to become ubiquitous across Twitter. You are one of the most frequently retweeted Twitter accounts right now, or X, as they say. So welcome to the program. I'm excited to talk to you, man.
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate you having me in. You're right. This is definitely kind of our time of year right now. Been really good. Very excited about it. And it's been busy. We've been rolling out a lot of new things this year and last year, and just getting more and more official and helpful, hopefully, for everybody who follows us and, as a subscriber to our website, I guess, if I'm plugging that as well. So
32beatwriters.com, 32beatwriters.com. Check it out. This is where they follow all the beat writers for all 32 teams, pick and choose the beat analysis, the reports that are the most fantasy relevant, and then they break them down. So one of the things I'm going to do today, talking to Zach about the beat reports I've read over the last couple weeks, and we will do a real or smoke, right? I was trying my best to think of something that starts with an S that is synonymous with real. So it could be smoke or but like truth.
Yeah,
nothing starts with S.
know.
I couldn't get. Can you think of any? Maybe I want to. I was like, I gotta ask the chat. Maybe the chat has something, some way that we could get some kind of rhyming, some kind of catchy turn of phrase there. Smoke or
Yeah,
real.
I'm trying to sizzle. I don't know.
No, but sizzle sounds fake too.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'd have to get out a thesaurus if you're asking me, probably.
Yeah, I love it when you have that turn of phrase. Chat, help us out if you can. We got to come up with a segment. We need a segment is this fake or is this real? Real or fake? Smoke or shadowing? That was the first thing. That was the FF Chef says stealth. No. They don't understand the chat. No. We want synonymous with real.
Like legitimate and good?
Like legit, truth, something. But I love smoke. I love the smoke term. I want to go. I'm locked into smoke. I love smoke. So I want to go something with an S or rhymes with smoke. If you could think of anything that's real, that's true, that starts with an S, that rhymes with smoke, then that's what we need. That's the turn of phrase we need for this segment. Talking to Zach. How do you pronounce your last name?
Hiduk, but I'll take it any way people pronounce it, as long as it's somewhat reasonably close. It was a Czech name, back in the 1890s when my great grandfather immigrated, and it used to be 50 letters long, and now it's just the 5. So who knows is the right answer, but
Hidukin.
we see it.
Hidukin.
There you go. Yeah.
Zach Hiduk from 32 Beat Writers. Talk about this 32 Beat Writers project. How did it get started? And what is the future?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was started by Zach Ring and Max Dornan, who kind of stay behind the scenes, but they started this. They were college friends, live in Missouri, Kansas City, and they started this basically as just a way to keep track of things for themselves. They started a Twitter account just following all the beat writers, and as they went along, they started to get more followers, and it kind of grew into what it is now. We're at 90,000 followers on Twitter, hoping to hit 100. Maybe you guys, if you're listening, can help us out with that if you're not already following. And basically I was brought on a little over 2 years ago now, and Matt Olson, who runs like our website, a lot of our content and things of that nature. He joined maybe 3.5 years ago now and helped bring me on as well. And so I've been doing the podcast. We've been building out a website, like I mentioned. And you mentioned at the top too, you can subscribe to that. And basically we take our Twitter feed, which if you're not a follower of us, it's a lot of information. It's all really good information, but we take that, we put it in like an easy to read format. We curate that for you. Some people would maybe call us an aggregator, but I was talking with Jordan Rodriguez of The Athletic at the Senior Bowl this year, and she's like, "You guys are a curator." And I was like, "Yeah, that's a better word." So you can think of us as like a curator of beat writer news that's like fantasy relevant, and so that's what we do. You can follow us on X or Twitter at 32BeatWriters if you want it, and then if you want to help us out and subscribe and help yourself out too, you can take a look at that website there.
We've got it. Smoke or stoked? I think
There
that's it, because we got the alliteration with the rhyming. I like it. I think that's it. Dustin Royer was the first in the chat. Smoke or stoked? That's going to be the name of the segment. I like it. I'm mad that I didn't come up with it myself. I want to think that I had iterated over it last night and already thought of that, but then it was like, nah, that's not going to work. I'm looking for 2 nouns. But hey, we can go noun into verbs. That's okay. That's perfectly fine. And, you are an analyzer of writers, so I'm sure you appreciate verb and noun talk, alliteration talk. I'm sure this is all something that you're into. This is your thing. But you also have a YouTube show. You have a podcast. Talk about that.
Yeah. The YouTube's still building that out. If you want to see it, though, it's we do it live. You can also follow us, and then probably the easiest way would be on X as well. If you want to actually watch the video on Twitter.
So you stream to both X and YouTube.
Yeah, and we'll get that going. Actually, we have Mike K of the Charlotte Observer on tonight around 8 p.m. So you can see that 8 p.m. Eastern time, or you can listen to that. That show is going to be going up later today as well. We're talking about the Carolina Panthers with him. You can also see all the other lives that we've done recently with other beat writers. So basically, especially this time of year, the goal is to get beat writers on the show, get a little bit more into the weeds with them, get some more specifics, some more nuance, a little bit more in depth, and question them specifically on some people and players that we're interested in and some reports that we're getting. It's a great opportunity, to get into the weeds, like I said, a little bit more and press them a little bit to see if they have any predictions and things of that nature. So it's been really informative and helpful for me. It's great to build those relationships with the beat writers, give them a little bit of an extra platform as well, and been very thankful for the ones that have been able to come on. I'm speaking with Cody Rourke, Denver Broncos, on Sunday, and then I should be getting Alec Lewis from The Athletic for the Vikings, either the end of this week or the beginning sometime of next. So keep an eye out for both of those. And then, throughout the year, we'll have fantasy experts on, film experts on, and sometimes Matt joins me as well. And we're going to start trying to get some training camp recaps out, just some short ones to give some people, some extra insight onto what's going on.
Now, breaking news, the 32 Beat Writers podcast will also appear on the Player Profiler podcast feed. Bam! This is very valuable. This is what we need. We need to talk to these beat writers and hold them accountable. In fact, I think this is just a crazy idea. I just came up with this just now. You should start a segment with these guys. Smoke or stoked? That's just I just came up with it just now. No help.
Yeah,
but you could do a segment, smoke or stoked, and really get to the bottom of it and see what is this rumor that I'm hearing. I keep hearing these reports. Maybe not by you. Maybe not by this particular beat reporter. That's the best. That would be my favorite part of this show. I'm not even doing this show, but I want to do the show that you're doing. I'm excited for it. Hey, listen to Mind a Mansion. Next show, bang. You get to talk to the beat reporter from the Denver Broncos and dig in a little bit. And I would love to say, hey, your colleagues are reporting X. Are they full of shit?
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting because those people have to work kind of close to each other, but also are somewhat, not rivals, I would say, but they're all trying to be the one who's got the right beat on everything. So that's definitely an interesting idea. And yeah, to build off of what you're saying, really excited to be in that main feed there. And then yeah, we're working to see if we can get that on the player profile or YouTube as well. So that'll be super exciting, great opportunity, hopefully for us, great opportunity, hopefully for you guys as well, partner together on that. So very excited and yeah, super helpful.
And
For
it's
both.
because of the audience, right? It's because of the
Yeah.
audience. We hear you when you tweet us at Player Pro, at Roto Underworld, at Fantasy underscore Mansion, at all these different places where you can message us. You can even email me, podfather at rotounderworld.com. And people say, hey, what about 32 Beat Writers? When are they going to be on? You guys should think about working with them, get a show on the YouTube channel. And then we were like, okay, well, that's a good idea. Right? So that's the people, the community throwing their ideas out there, which is we just did this. We just workshopped the segment Smoke or Stoked. And that's what we've been doing. That's how Player Profiler came to be. Was just the audience saying, hey, what about this metric? Hey, what about this? Why don't you guys do this? Can you guys do a draft kit? All these things. And we're like, okay. So basically how Player Profiler was built and, was just say yes. Just say yes. Listen and say yes. Listen and say yes. That's how this whole thing came into be. So now we have I have some detailed questions for you.
Yeah.
And we're gonna be what is who do you think is the best beat reporter?
Oh, ever or like currently?
Right now. Who do you trust the most? Who do you think puts out the most information? But also the one that appreciates fantasy.
Yeah, I tend to avoid these questions sometimes because it's so. There's the real answer is that there's so many good ones. If I'm looking for a storyteller, it is going to be Jordan Rodrigue, and not just because I had her on recently and because she's so nice, but she really is one of the best beat writer storytellers, covering the Rams and everybody else. Tyler Drake of the Arizona Cardinals.
Welcome to the Roto Underworld radio program and the Mind of Mansion show. Zach Hiduk is here with me from 32 Beat Writers. He is, oh my God, Zach. I just totally fucked that up. I can't believe I acted over here. We're going to run this again. This is going to run out. The music's going to run out, and I'm going to actually do this cold. And then anyone that subscribes to the I'm going to do this cold. Anyone that subscribes to the podcast can hear it, and we are going to overlay the music in post. It's going to sound great. The live show, I fucked it up, but you listen to the podcast in post, and you're going to hear it. Welcome to the Mind of Mansion program. The man from the site everybody's talking about, 32 Beat Writers, is here with me today. They talk to everyone from every team. They are pulling in the information that you need. Is it smoke or should you be stoked? Here with me today it is Zach Hiduk.
That may be the highest energy introduction I've ever received. So thank you for that. Yeah, it's good to be here.
Yeah, I've been trying to get you guys on for a little while now. You've been heavily requested, talking about all the new contracts that are coming out, the players that are these players are cut candidates. These players are just full of buzz. Can't get enough buzz about player X, and yet player Y probably won't make the team. And then we turn around week 1, that player's starting. So the player that was a cut candidate somehow starts, and the player everyone loved doesn't see the field. This is training camp. This is smoke season. And then there's the worst is when, Darrell Henderson's starting. Nobody had this. This was not reported. The Rams hate Cam Akers. This was not reported throughout training camp. Everyone's shocked, running to their free agent pool to see if they can get Darrell Henderson. How does that happen? That's a beat report failure. But maybe there was a nugget that someone could have gleaned along the way that would have given you a clue that was happening or was a possibility, and that's what the 32 beat writers are all about. So, any thoughts on Tua's new contract? Because Tua got a brand new big contract, even though he's not that good. So, any thoughts on the contract for Tua?
Yeah, you definitely don't pull any punches on this show, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think this isn't a great answer, but it is what it is,
You
I
can't
think they
start
had
a
to
show.
do it.
You can't
Yeah.
start a podcast. The first thing you're going to say is this isn't a great answer. You have to believe that your answer is going to be great. Your answer is awesome,
get
Zach.
anywhere.
Trust me, I'm telling you, your answer is great. This is not a bad answer. This is a good answer.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, this great answer is that I think, it is what it is. I think they had to do it. And when you're in a situation where your quarterback is good enough that they keep you out of drafting another good one, but not great enough that they pull you along the highway, then you're in that kind of, and this might be a tiny bit of a slight on Kirk Cousins, but you're in that kind of like Kirk Cousins Vikings era where they keep paying him, but they probably aren't ever going to get over the hump. But he puts up numbers, and so the debate is always like, well, is it who's around him or is it Kirk? And I think you got the same thing with Tua. So my take on it is if he stays healthy, it's fine. But to win anything, you're going to have to really hope that Tyreek Hill stays good and healthy and around, and that Jalen Waddle can be that guy if Tyreek Hill starts to fall off, and that, their head coach is just, Mike McDaniel stays on top of it. And, we've seen defenses catch up to offenses sometimes, and they've got all the speed, they've got Achane, and they brought in some additional help in this offseason. But I think Tua not being a truck, as to put it that way, and is more like a trailer, I think that is a problem, but I think they were stuck and they kind of just had to do it.
A lot of these teams feel like they have to do it, and they don't end up suffering the consequences. The 49ers felt like they had to do it with Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, perfect example.
They had to do it with Jimmy Garoppolo. They paid him all this money, and then they just sort of wiped it away. Right? It didn't affect their ability to go to the Super Bowl.
Got a little bit lucky with how much they paid for
salary
Lance,
cap hole. This is going to haunt them. This Jimmy Garoppolo contract is going to be an albatross around. It's not. And I think that's where this came from. I think that the Dolphins learned from the 49ers and said, it's a possibility that this is a bad contract. In fact, it's a probability that it's a bad contract. But we're competing for a championship. We have no choice. We have the way the NFL is structured. It's unlike many other sports where the quarterback is so integral. It's the cog in the machine, and all these other pieces, they can't operate. They can't function without this one critical piece. And as long as it's functional, you have to pay it hundreds of millions of dollars. Even if it's not functioning at the highest level, that's just a bonus.
Yeah, it's kind of the price of doing business. And I mean, if you're the owner and you're winning games, maybe you're not winning a Super Bowl. I think, somebody, I don't remember who's, this is credited to, but there's only a handful of teams that are actually trying to win a title genuinely every year. And so I think to them, they might just be happy winning games. And frankly, from like a fantasy standpoint, I am totally fine with it because we know he can distribute the ball well enough to the guys who are there. And ultimately, if I'm not a Dolphins fan, that's kind of what I care about. So, I think it's fine. And as you mentioned, the Niners, they even shot themselves in the foot with the Trey Lance pick. I mean, they should have been buried. But if you have a coach who's good enough, like hopefully Mike McDaniel is for them, then that can get you out of a lot of trouble if you can scheme things up.
On paper, the extension is more than $200 million because I'm on the website 32beatwriters.com. 32beatwriters.com to get the latest news, the important news that's also fantasy relevant. That's not the guaranteed number, but that is the number on paper. And it's just embarrassing, right? It's just embarrassing that a player who is below average at his position in his league would be able to command a $52.6 million annual salary. It's crazy.
It would be nice to be paid that way for, it would be nice to be paid that way if you're somebody else, right? I think, Joe Flacco at one point in time was the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, and it's just, I don't know how to. It seems like that is the way. If you're Mandalorian, this is the way of wide receiver and quarterback contracts. Is whoever's kind of the next guy to get paid seems to be the highest. So I don't know what would happen to break that, but I definitely, in a way, it's an overpay. But again, I don't know what else they were gonna do. I don't know.
They can't. They're stuck. It's just fascinating. Because in no other sport, point guard, you don't see in the NBA the 20th ranked point guard getting $167 million guaranteed.
Yeah, it's quite a lot of money.
Right? Like the number 10, right? Center forward or, attacking midfielder for the Premier League. They're not going to get $167 million guaranteed. Like the critical distributors in sports around from league to league, you're not going to see this. This is a very unique phenomenon to the sport of football and the NFL specifically. It's fascinating. I just find that it just blew my hair back. Another quarterback like a Justin Herbert, the money's not going to be that much different.
No.
And the talent disparity is a chasm. Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
Yeah. If you're good enough to be signed for multiple years, you're going to get paid very similarly. That's just the way that it seems to be.
So, continuing to think about quarterbacks and news about quarterbacks, we know that Russell Wilson has missed a bunch of camp with an injury, which is not good, right? Because he's not as secure as, say, Tua somehow. So, yet it feels like the Steelers beat reporters, they're not in on Justin Fields. You would think that this would just be the toehold. The Justin Fields just needs a toehold. He just needs to be able to get a grip just with a couple fingers, and then he can start climbing. And yet, I don't get that from the beat reporters. They seem very dismissive of Justin Fields. Why?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things, right? I think that one, they've been dismissive in some ways, just that he would be the starter, most likely because, that's what Tomlin said. Tomlin came out very strongly in support of Russell Wilson getting the starting, the starting job. He was pretty upfront about that. All that being said, recently, I think one wrench that's been thrown into things is Russell Wilson hasn't been there. He's been there, but he's had an injury recently that they've been going very slow with. I'm trying to remember if it was a hamstring or something to that effect. And so Justin Fields has actually gotten a decent amount of first-team reps. And so I don't think
Russell Wilson suffered a calf injury.
Calf injury. There you go. Yeah, they were being that's what it was. Thank you. Yes. So they were being very careful with that. It was the news. And so I think, I'm sure there's mixed opinions out there in Pittsburgh as to who the best guy is. But, Russell Wilson, he's a Super Bowl winner. He's older. Justin Fields, despite some of his highs, had some pretty major problems and obviously was dumped by Chicago very cheaply. So I think that, it's just kind of natural that Wilson would be the guy. I don't know that they hate Justin Fields, but I will say that some of the stuff recently coming out of of camp for the Steelers has been at least not negative and somewhat positive regarding Justin Fields. So I think that now that he has the opportunity, that's going to make this battle very interesting because it was not supposed to happen this way. I still expect that Pittsburgh tries its best to put Wilson in front of Fields. But now there's a little sliver of hope, I think, for Fields to try and push for that job earlier than was maybe anticipated.
Russell Wilson is the prototypical try-hard quarterback. He's doing push-ups on the team plane at 40,000 feet, and there's very few quarterbacks around the league that have inspired as many eye rolls from teammates as Russell Wilson. And so it makes perfect sense that Russell Wilson would strain his calf doing the sled push.
That's what it was? Yeah.
That was the report per 32 beat writers that during the sled push, that's when it happened. But it's of course, quarterbacks, just so everybody knows, I've been through training camps at the college level, and at no point is the quarterback doing the sled push. That's not a thing. I don't think
it's not. If you're in a situation where you need that muscle grouping, you're probably in a bad spot.
They're not doing it. They're not doing it. I mean, maybe I could see some sort of punishment or something. Everyone has to do the sled push or something. But this was a try-hard, volunteering to do the sled push and then straining a calf muscle. Yeah. And so it was really the perfect situation, right? It was, the irony was thick there. It was just so apropos that's how the calf strain happened. And what it does is it allows the coaches to start to imagine Justin Fields in that role. Mm-hmm. And it allows Justin Fields to start to make some plays in practice that the coaches know Russell Wilson is not capable of. And then the wheels start turning. So now the probability that Russell Wilson plays the full season has necessarily gone down because of this injury. That is a fact. That is a fact. So Justin Fields should be rising, even if the beat reporters will be the last ones to admit it. We know that he's rising. So this injury by itself is reason for optimism around Justin Fields. And if Russell Wilson is reported to struggle when he comes back, he could now suffer potentially a setback later in camp. Like, now there's a lot of possibilities. The range of outcomes now is really opened up. And I would prefer Justin Fields under center. There's more fantasy points being scored in Pittsburgh with Justin Fields under center. That's a super inexpensive stack. It'd be the potentially the cheapest backdoor double stack of all time with Freiermuth and Calvin Austin with Justin Fields. All guys in the double-digit rounds on Underdog. I mean, that would just be phenomenal. So I'm all about the value and you getting mobile quarterbacks at value. So now I'm totally acceptable to draft Russell Wilson in best ball previously. I thought that he could play the vast majority of the games, if not the full season. So sure. The Pickens-Wilson stacks were in play. I have in the Scott Fish Bowl, I have a Pickens stack. But now with this injury, I'd be much more likely to take a shot on Justin Fields, especially in Superflex and 2QB leagues. You have to draft Justin Fields. You have to target him in those later rounds. You have to do it. In fact, before the starters are off the board, before all the starters are gone in a Superflex or 2QB league, you need to be grabbing Justin Fields, and you need to be stashing him in those particular formats because he's going to be a real difference maker if and when he's under center in Pittsburgh. Jamar Chase is holding in, which is just a farce. The whole collective bargaining agreement has forced a farcical relationship between players that want contracts and the coaches and the front office. Everyone is lying. Everyone is pretending. What do you prefer? Do you prefer the true holdout where it's like everyone is being honest about their intentions, or the hold in where everything is fake?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're right. The new CBA pretty heavily punishes people, especially if you're not like a super highly paid person already or haven't gotten that second contract, such as, Jamar Chase or Brandon Ayuk or CeeDee Lamb. So, oftentimes those guys will show up. I think it's at least 40,000 a day or something like that. Depending, I don't know if there's staggered depending on who you are as a player, but it's a lot of money, even to guys who make a lot of money. So I prefer the hold in just because it feels to me that the relationship is at least amicable enough for people to pretend. And you're right, there probably is quite a bit of pretending.
It's
I
kabuki
think
theater.
it's fine to admit that. But I do think, with Jamar Chase specifically, he was handing out towels, or at least there with his teammates. And that's what I care about. Like, it's one thing for the relationship between you and the team, and it's another for between you and the teammates. And I think the teammates one is important to maintain. Now, you could posit that, you standing on the sideline in shorts and a t-shirt and not working with the rest of people while you're hoping to get paid more than the rest of them are probably all going to get paid combined. I don't know. Maybe that isn't a good relationship builder, but in my mind, I think I would prefer them to be there. CeeDee Lamb, it does. You're right. It is honest, but I think it does make it more extreme in a case like that. I think that ultimately all of these deals are going to get done, so maybe it doesn't matter in some ways. But
no,
if
they're
it
going to
does
get done.
matter,
Oh, no.
yeah.
First
If it
of
does
all,
matter, I want
most
people
of the
to
things we're talking
be there.
about, Zach, don't matter. Okay, that we want to be very clear. Most of these things don't matter. Ultimately, Russell Wilson's going to come back from this
Does
calf
life
injury.
matter,
He's going to be under center week 1, and yes, the probability that Justin Fields plays more games has gone up, but in all likelihood, it won't matter. It'll be Russell Wilson for the majority of the season. It's just, here's my theory.
Mm-hmm.
You go all the way back 10, 20, 30 years. Many years ago, there was a wide receiver for the Jaguars named Jimmy Smith. These were the early days of the Jaguars franchise. And every year, like clockwork, Jimmy Smith held out. It was his thing. And then he would sign a short-term contract, and he would go right back to holding out. And he maximized his value that way. But there were years where Jimmy Smith was missing the first 2 games. So these holdouts, they could go 8 weeks. Players legitimately held out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that was in the best long-term interests of the player. I never did. And so, in a way, while this collective bargaining agreement was an embarrassment by the Players Association, they should be embarrassed. It was a catastrophic deal in terms of the incompetent negotiation by the NFL Players Association. They got the bare minimum. They extracted the bare minimum from the equity holders around the league, and they should be embarrassed, and they should all be fired. But what was a bargaining chip that they could have used, I would have happily given up for other concessions. And that bargaining chip is, hey, we will construct the fine system so that it is essentially impossible financially for players to hold out, which is what they ultimately agreed to. But then they gave up a bunch of other things. They gave up they made a lot of other concessions that they didn't need to. Because if you're going to create this fine structure and essentially give up on the idea of holding out, that was a huge tension point hanging over the equity holders and management, that at any point their star player could hold out. If you're going to take that off the table, you need to get a lot more in return. They took that off the table, but I think that I, as a negotiator, would have been happy to take that off the table, because in many cases, the agent is not interested in the player's long-term earning potential. They're interested in just extracting the most from the current deal in front of them. And that oftentimes would negatively impact the player's long-term future with that team in the league, and ultimately put a cap on their earning potential. So what Ja'Marr Chase is doing vis-a-vis CeeDee Lamb is what I believe to be optimal. I think you should have a cordial relationship. I think you should be team first, and I don't think you should hold out. The agent is going to tell you that in order to saber rattle at the highest level, you need to leave camp. You need to be unavailable for comment, conversation, disappear. But Ja'Marr Chase has never done that. Ja'Marr Chase has never made the cool, calculating, how do I get the biggest contract? How do I get drafted the earliest? How do I minimize my risk and maximize my return? That has not been the way Ja'Marr Chase has ever operated. You might say, well, he skipped his final year at LSU because he didn't need to play. Okay, but he was going to be a top 10 pick either way, and he participated in all the drills at the NFL Combine. I think there was more to him missing that final season at LSU than has been reported. I think he wanted to play, and I know that because all the reports are that he was working out harder than anybody. He was with Rondale Moore and a bunch of other wide receivers and cornerbacks in Texas, working out at an incredibly high level heading into that combine, and then he participated in every drill. Put that next to Marvin Harrison Jr., who was just working the process, who clearly was doing everything, saying everything. If you watch Hard Knocks, he's saying everything, the talking points that the agents and his family members, whoever's managing him, his management put together a plan and talking points, and he fulfilled it line by line, letter by letter. Ja'Marr Chase has never done that. Ja'Marr Chase said, I'm running the 40. I'm actually going to participate in the agility drills. And less than half of the wide receivers at all participated in the agility drills. Ja'Marr Chase did the 20-yard shuttle. Ja'Marr Chase did the 3-cone. He didn't have to do any of that. If you were just trying to minimize your risk and maximize your returns, you would not have done that. And now we see another situation where you have a CeeDee Lamb who is being managed, and you have Ja'Marr Chase who is saying, listen, I want to be with my team. I don't care. I know I can't practice, but I want to be there. I want to participate. These are my friends. This is my family. I'm going to hand out towels. I'm going to root these guys on. If I have the opportunity to hold in as opposed to hold out, I'm taking it. And I think that if you were Jimmy Smith 30 years ago, it would have been in your best interest to say, hey, I know my agent wants me to hold out, but if you all don't mind, I want to have a new contract and I'm not going to practice, but I'd like to be here with everybody. And I think that would improve the relationship and the potential of that player staying there, signing a longer contract. But that longer contract, see, it might not be as front-loaded. It might not be as agent-friendly, Zach. That's the thing. These guys that are managed, they often sign more agent-friendly contracts as opposed to a longer-term contract, which is like, hey, I am comfortable here, I'm happy here, and it's not about nickel and diming the team all the way down the line. And those players with that perspective and that approach, they end up netting more money over time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and they can force contracts earlier and things like that, like you mentioned, if they're front loaded and such. So, yeah, I do think there's some strategy to the way that they have, people have been signing deals. Some of them share agents and things like that. So then you even got that manipulation in the background, which just adds a whole other layer to all of this. So, yeah, certainly interesting. But, yeah, I'd prefer, and it makes me more comfortable as a Ja'Marr Chase or Brandon Ayuk owner if I see them at least, taking pictures, being there with the people that they're going to end up working with.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the way to go, man. So again, every step of the way, I've appreciated how Jamar Chase does business, and I think that he is going to be rewarded in the long term with that particular approach. Beat reporters are excited about Jameson Williams. Is that smoke, or should we be stoked?
Yeah, I think you have to parse it a little bit. And again, it also depends on which beat writer you're looking at, right? So I think two things are true here with Jameson Williams. I think he does look better. I think he probably is performing at a higher level. So he's probably better a little bit physically, probably a little bit better mentally, probably a little bit more with it, when it comes to team activities. I think that it was put very well, and I should have written this down, and I don't have it handy, so apologies for that. But the quote here that I have is that Jameson Williams continues to look good and sharp in space, and the Lions are, and this is the focus point for me, doing their best to help him get there. Like, I don't want to call him like Treylon Burks level of help needed, but I think he's going to be more helpful for the team than he is or was last year, and he's going to be more helpful for the NFL team of the Detroit Lions than he will for your fantasy team. So if you're asking me, hey, do I believe this guy's going to be super great and everything's fixed now? Personally, me, no. I don't think the beat reporters are telling us to take that as like take the cheese on that. But I think they're trying to find a way to say, like, to give him the credit that maybe he deserves, but also like the doing their best to help him get there, I think is very key. You know what I mean?
At the wide receiver position specifically, there's very little that a team can do to really help you. Right? If you think about a guard, if a guard is weak, there's a lot they can do. The center, the tackle, the quarterback even, the play calling, they can make up for a weakness on the offensive line. They can create a whole system to try to conceal that weakness. Okay? With a wide receiver, you are out on an island. You either win or you don't. And that is it. And the one thing that Jameson Williams can do to help the team, even if he can't figure out how to win, even if he can't figure out how to be in the right place at the right time to connect on a timing-based play, he can at least run fast in a straight line and stretch the field and occupy defenders.
Yep. Yeah, he's clearly behind Amon-Ra St. Brown and Laporta and definitely Gibbs, I would say, as well, as far as receiving options are concerned. So at best, I think he's the fourth guy. Cole in the chat, I think, had it, right down there. I love this little sidebar chat with these guys going off. It's great. Best ball only player. Like if I'm ever drafting him, it's like if I get him cheap in best ball, and I just hope that it works out, So I agree with that. And I think, they mentioned, we have a quote here as well that, he's going to be Colton Pouncey of The Athletic. Jameson Williams is firmly entrenched as one of the guys. But that doesn't mean he's going to be dominating anything. Making the team because you're a former first-round pick who's fast is different than contributing as a top 24 fantasy wide receiver. So
what you're hearing is he's not going to be cut.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what you're hearing. You're hearing he's going to be on the team, not he's going to be a big-time playmaker. In fact, his snap count could go up this year. But that does not necessarily mean targets. We've seen games where Jameson Williams is playing 60 snaps and gets one target. That's what Jameson Williams is. That's not going to change. After a couple of years in the league, a guy that's drafted top 15 doesn't just change, doesn't just become the all-purpose, all-around talent that he was drafted to be. N'Keal Harry never became that. After 2 years, it was obvious. Treylon Burks never became that. After 2 years, it was obvious. Jameson Williams not going to be that. After 2 years, it's obvious. And if you are ingesting that hopium, right, then you're going to go ahead and say, yeah, man, first-round pick. He's got all the speed. I remember some of these razzle-dazzle plays from college. Man, I'd love to replicate that in the NFL and have that guy on my fantasy team. God, it would feel so good. God, it would feel so good, man. This hopium, man, makes me feel great. Right?
And speed, especially.
Speed
sells.
Oh, God. The Lions' offense. Oh, my God. Breathe it in. Breathe it in. But it's a wasted pick. You're better off with Khalil Shakir because he's going to get twice as many targets. And he doesn't have the sex appeal. But there's better options that are on prolific offenses that don't have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs as the top 3 options. And that also have professional receivers that know how to create separation, squeeze the football, and execute in these timing patterns to get that target count up to 100 for the season. Right, to crack that 20% target share if things break right, where that's not in Jameson Williams' range of outcomes. Like, at most, he's a 15% target share guy, probably closer to 10. That's just what he is. Right? But Jordan Addison, that's his ability. Jordan Addison can create separation. Jordan Addison can command targets. Jordan Addison's great on timing patterns, but Jordan Addison can't stop getting arrested or written up
trouble
by law enforcement. He's getting in situations where he's falling asleep on the side of the road, and then he wakes up to like a mag light tapping on the window. You don't want that. You don't want that.
No.
You don't want to be caught speeding at 160 miles per hour. Because as we've seen in multiple occasions in the last 5 years, college players and or NFL players can be involved in high-speed deaths. You don't want to be. And so I'm not saying that Jordan Addison is Henry Ruggs, but what I'm saying is there is a lack of care for his own health, his own life, and the lives of others that necessarily makes him risky. Makes him risky. Just put the possible suspensions, the future suspensions off to the side, in Dynasty in particular, it makes that player very risky because they do not value themselves as highly as another player. Let's say Jackson Smith-Njigba. Similar player, similar draft capital, similar Dynasty value a month ago, but now doesn't have multiple intersections with law enforcement, and of course you would prefer Jackson Smith-Njigba in Dynasty, if for no other reason than he's going to be in the league 5 years from now. I don't know where the hell Jordan Addison is going to be 5 years from now. I don't know where Jordan Addison is going to be 3 years from now. For this year, he's going to play, but there's a possible suspension next year, but it's also just a signal that the level that he would have to get to command a significant target share in the shadow of Justin Jefferson, it's such a high bar that I just can't get there with him. I don't see any reason why I'm pushing the button on Jordan Addison in Dynasty when there are other options. Now, this year is interesting in that I think the quarterback play in Minnesota is going to be better than anticipated. So there's some value in seasonal leagues. So I think that's an interesting dichotomy of value where, okay, in seasonal leagues, this is a guy I can push the button on, even though I would never touch him in Dynasty. You ever had that conversation with yourself or with others about, hey, this is more of a seasonal league asset, but based on the news I'm hearing, I'm out in Dynasty?
Oh, yeah. And I mean, as far as Jordan Addison goes specifically, I mean, yeah, there's no excuse for that. It's just stupid. I think from the outside, sometimes we're a little quick to judge guys. We're all young and stupid. But when you 2 years in a row get caught before you even play a game going, like, I think it was like 100 60, whatever it was, miles an hour down the road and said, oh, my dog was sick or whatever. And then the next year you have a teammate weeks, not even weeks before, I think, like days before, you get killed by a drunk driver whose funeral then is planned. And then you go out and you do the same thing and get lucky not to kill anybody else. That that does speak to character to me. I think, again, I try to be measured with that, but it absolutely speaks to a complete lack of awareness, a complete lack of an inability to control one's actions. And that does concern me in a dynasty league. Yeah, like you mentioned, reality in the NFL, if he plays well, he's going to get re-signed by them. But if he kills himself or somebody else or is suspended, then he won't be on the team because of that. So I think from a long-term perspective, if I'm just thinking of a dynasty football asset, you're right. There's way too much risk for me to want to buy for anything more than, like, I'd buy him for a second or something like that, depending. But there's no way the person who has him is going to sell him for what I'd be comfortable buying him at. And then, yeah, when you're talking season to season, we're going to be really dependent on JJ McCarthy. And this goes for Dynasty too, but you have to believe in a rookie quarterback if you expect him to do much this year. Not worried about Jefferson. I already was kind of out on Addison last year, not because I didn't think of him as a good prospect or because I didn't think that he'd be productive, but because we knew Kirk wasn't going to be there. And gambling on rookie quarterbacks, if you're looking at the second wide receiver on the team, not generally, unless you're CJ Stroud, it's not generally a good bet to make.
Glad we're on the same page on that. Now, when rookies start camp on the NFI list, I get concerned. Less so with the veterans. A veteran can start off the season on an NFI list, and it could be the first time that they've been on the NFI list, and it could be a legitimate reason. I've seen guys that they fall down the stairs. Like, it's a legitimate non-football related injury, and they start for a week on the NFI list, and that's fine. But there's something about a rookie like Ricky Pearsall, even if it's for a couple days, starting the league, the team, they have to report that this guy is not playing, he's not practicing, he's on the NFI list. There's something about that, man, where I'm like, it would be an interesting report to read. All the rookies that have ended up on the NFI list and how their careers played out. I don't have that data in front of me, so I'm speaking just on feel and heuristics. I don't like it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely not a good thing. The good, silver lining with this particular situation, if we're moving into Ricky Pearsall or anybody like that, is he just came off yesterday. But in general, yeah, it's not great. I mean, you got Marshawn Lloyd up in Green Bay, very excited about his potential, even if he is behind Jacobs up there. But, he started off injured as well.
Why?
And,
what are they doing?
Yeah.
What's happening?
Hamstrings, I guess, especially with the 49ers.
This isn't good, man. Then you're not hydrating or you're not stretching enough. These are all issues that these players have. You're not Randy Moss. Randy Moss started every camp with a hamstring injury, but he's Randy Moss.
Yeah, and the thing is, too, like, if it's NFI, you go on the PUP if you get injured while you're at like a team facility or doing a team activity. And if it's NFI, that means that you were off doing something by yourself, which isn't inherently a bad thing, but it opens you up to risk. And there's nuance to that, and the PUP changes when you get into season versus the beginning of training camp. So take all of that, with a little bit of a grain of salt. But it's never good to get injured. It's never good to get injured when you're off doing your own thing, because then you don't have the insurance of being in a team facility and that somebody from the team was necessarily watching you. So, yeah, it's not great. If you only miss a couple days, I feel a lot better. But this is critical. Install period time is very, very important, especially if you're a rookie who's behind people. It is very important. And it does definitely matter. It does matter, for sure.
I hate it. I hate it so much. Now, Dennis Miller, coach of the Saints, had this to say about Kendre Miller. He said it's hard to make the team when you're in the training room all the time.
Yeah.
So is that smoke or is that serious?
I think it is serious. It does make me nervous. I bought Kendre Miller a couple weeks ago in a Dynasty league, and I still think that the reality of Alvin Kamara, not being long for the football world and there not being much else there, excuse me, is a thing. And I do have faith in Kendre Miller to be able to take that opportunity if it's given to him. And that's the risk there. I'm going to try not dying live on air here. But, I don't know. I'm not the biggest Dennis Allen fan. I'm not sure how much the players respect him. And part of the blustering. Man, I'm really dying. Here, let me get a drink if you don't mind.
Drink some water, Zach. It's good use of the mute button, by the way. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, if I don't have that, I just sound like I'm coughing in everybody's ears. But to keep it short, give my voice a little bit of a break here in a second, I guess. I just don't know how much the team actually respects him as a player group. They ran that play last year to get Jamal Williams that touchdown, and he came out kind of against it, and the players came out and said, we don't care. And so I wonder if how much of what he says now at this time of year is trying to show that he's kind of in charge of things. There
are so many
players,
Zach. There are so many players like this. There are so many players like Kendre Miller that come along, third-round picks with speed. I remember this guy named Bryce Brown, right? Athletic running back for the Eagles. There's so many of these guys that can't stay healthy, or they can't learn the playbook. They can't be in the right place at the right time. Whatever it is. And they will talk. They will talk a lot about their potential and what they would do with opportunity X. But they just don't ever earn it in the NFL. And there are players that are like that don't have the explosiveness, that aren't given that opportunity, like a Zach Moss, but they grind it out. They aren't that efficient early in their career, but they don't talk. They just they accept it. They're like, I underperformed. Right? The team moved on, and I moved on. And then I waited for an opportunity, and lo and behold, Jonathan Taylor's hurt, and now the team needs me, and I'm going to step. That does not seem to be the path for Kendre Miller. And that's what worries me in all formats. Right? If he would just keep his head down, not talk, and say, yeah, I'm injured, this is it, I'm going to let my play talk, then I would feel better about him. But when they start to come out publicly, critical of coaches, critical of teammates, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, I wouldn't have cared about this. I would have just been solely focused on, hey, this guy's a size speed specimen. But now I've seen enough of these. We talk about the heuristics of it. My instincts now, they are more finely honed, and I've seen more of these situations over the years. And now, intuitively, I recoil when I see these situations play out, because I've seen so many players. The best example probably is like Darius Geis, right? Just flush it all away, after getting just a handful of touches in the NFL, and those touches were explosive. They were explosive long touchdowns. They were stiff-armed guys into the third row, and then a hurdle, and then a breakaway run. And then they're never heard from again because they're just not wired in a way to be professionals, to be serious professionals. And, so now that I've lived through enough of these Darius Geises, I'm less likely to be bullish on a player like a Kendre Miller. 5 years ago, I would not be saying go get Roschon Johnson. I would be all about Kendre Miller at a similar ADP, right? Deep in those double-digit rounds in seasonal leagues, I'd be saying I'm a stashing guy like Kendre Miller. I love that. Fuck Jamal Williams. He's slow. He's a slug, right? But you're not allowed to be surprised when Jamal Williams has more touches this year than Kendre Miller. I've seen way too many things in this league to assume Kendre Miller is going to have more touches than Jamal Williams. I can't do it, especially now with what I'm seeing at the beginning of camp.
Yeah, and let me throw out now this is a deep cut. I'm not telling you to draft him. I'm just telling you to keep an eye out in like your Dynasty League waiver wire. And if you got an extra roster spot on the deep roster, maybe throw him on there. Jordan Mims has been getting a little bit of hype. UDFA in 2023 was with the Bills and now with them. I think out of like Fresno State or something like that. Played a similar scheme in college to like what Clint Kubiak is running there now, which apparently, according to like John Siegler of the Saints Wire, might give him a little bit of an edge. And he's been getting reps while Miller has been out. So yeah, Jamal Williams is definitely the guy who they can trust and has been there a long time. So that's the default option for sure. But yeah, I'd be just interested speculatively, just saying that maybe keep an eye out on Jordan Mims.
And you agree that a Roschon Johnson, he's wired the right way. He's a team captain. He's a guy that the coaches can never stop talking about. They love the leadership. They love the ball security. They love that he shows up. They love that he's in the weight room all the time. And that's the kind of stuff that matters. That's the kind of stuff that's going to help Blake Corum get more touches. That's what's going to help Roschon Johnson, especially in contrast to a guy like DeAndre Swift. That's why DeAndre Swift's got to be careful, right? It's not just Khalil Herbert. He's competing for touches with someone who is that guy that the teammates and the coaches will rally around, and he's got a lot more talent than Jamal Williams.
Yeah,
So.
The real question to me is Roschon Johnson getting breakfast with his quarterback? That's what we'll have to monitor,
I think he will. I think the problem is it's hard to have, because Roschon Johnson has breakfast at 4 a.m., it's hard to eat breakfast with him.
That's true.
Because he gets up before dawn and he's in the facility. If I were a rookie, is this crazy? If I were a rookie, I just made all this money. I just got this big check, this big signing bonus. I would just buy a house, the first house that's available as close to the stadium as possible, and I would just live there. I wouldn't go anywhere. I would just always be at the facility. So there'd be no way I could go on the NFI list. I would never be on the NFI list because everything I do would be in the facility.
Yeah, that's a Tom Brady method, right? Always there.
It's not. It seems pretty simple to me, right?
Yeah,
Especially with these guys where a lot of the times, I know that Jordan Addison was sort of just off on his own, but Christian Kirk, remember he was throwing the bricks at cop cars? Remember that one time he got in trouble?
I do not remember that.
It was in the Waste Management Invitational. I talk about it all the time. Waste Management Invitational, he's throwing bricks at cars, and he and his friends get caught, and he gets arrested, and he decided that was it. He decided, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to be a professional. That was the wake-up call. That was like, hey, this was a young person's mistake. That wasn't a signal that this guy's not ready for the league. And we now know in hindsight that that's exactly what that was, right? We didn't know that at the time. It was certainly something that you wanted to file away. And if Christian Kirk had had another intersection with law enforcement, that would have been a very bad sign. I can guarantee he wouldn't be where he is now in the league had he not learned that lesson, right? So, I mean, that's it's a lot easier to avoid all of those incidents if you're not even going home. Like my parents, I'd be like, hey, I understand you guys want me to come home for this and that, this, my sister's birthday, things like that. I'm sorry, I have to do this.
Yeah.
Right? I can't come home. I can't hang out with my buddies. There's just no opportunity for me to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. I'm always at the facility. It's such a short window. I mean, the average NFL career is a couple of years. So just spend every second you can there and like, hey, I'm going to retire from football very soon. Blink your eyes and I'll be retired. Okay? And I won't miss a birthday after that. Right? I won't miss a party with my buddies after that. But in the meantime, while I have this very brief window, I'm not coming home. I'm within a 1 mile radius of the stadium at all times. That's just how I would do it if I had that opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, I think the unfortunate thing is these guys have like a 19, 21, 23-year-old brain, so it's they need some guidance, I think, and part of that, I think, is on the NFL and the Players Association as well. They've tried to put some of that stuff out for financial, guidance, but definitely could use a little bit more of that for sure, I think.
And so one player that I think about in this way is Chase Brown. So we talked about Zach Moss. He's clearly wired in a way that is going to max out his abilities, just being in the right place at the right time and working hard, and that's what Zach Moss is. Chase Brown's very different. Chase Brown's an explosive athlete, but he had no football instincts coming into the league. I mean, he was a mistake machine at the Senior Bowl. Drops, fumbles, missed assignments, missed pass protection. It was embarrassing. Watching Chase Brown at the Senior Bowl, it was embarrassing. But he has that athleticism base, right? He has that material, the clay that can be molded. And so it is very possible. I am open to the possibility that he has dedicated himself in that way that I talked about, that he has just basically moved into the facility. And I believe a guy like Chase Brown can eventually learn all of those nuances where he failed a year ago. He can learn how to pass protect. He can learn the scheme in a way that he understands it deeply and instinctually with extra reps. If it doesn't come natural to him, he can get there with reps. So that's why I'm not dismissive of Chase Brown. I'm very intrigued by him. And then you hear these beat reports about Chase Brown. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the most recent reports are that he's getting the majority of the first team reps. Now, I don't believe that means he's going to be the starter, but I do think that what this means is that they do feel like there might be a 1A, 1B, or a 2 and a 2. I don't know. I don't know exactly how it's going to, end up exactly when it comes to touches, but I do think he's going to have a much bigger role than what some people would give him. And right now, from just an ADP perspective, depending on where you're drafting in a regular fantasy league, you can get Chase Brown at running back 41, Zach Moss at running back 25. If they're going to have similar touches, I think I know who I'm going to go with. And we've seen Zach Moss perform, well. It's not as if he was bad for the Colts, but when you give a guy who is not normally used, excuse me, I'm going to have to go on the NFI list. As soon as, you give a guy who's not really the guy normally and never was brought into the league to necessarily be the guy and try to make him the guy, it just generally doesn't work out. I mean, we've got Tony Pollard. We got plenty of other examples of that. And I think that is the situation with the Bengals. And maybe they know that. And maybe they're like, you know what? It's not going to be just one guy. Why would we bring Zach Moss in to just be the guy? It's going to be both of them. And that makes sense. It both makes sense with what we're seeing. It makes sense logically. And so give me the guy with a lower ADP if I'm drafting one of the two.
And it also makes sense they would give him a lot of first-team reps because he needs them.
Yeah, for sure. For
He
sure. It's
needs
not
them.
indicative that he's necessarily going to be the guy, like I said.
Right.
But it is important, and they're doing what they can to bring him along.
Now, I have 10 burning questions for you. 10 burning questions in rapid fire mode after this. Hey, why do we partner with the FFPC? Because they have the widest variety of fantasy football formats, and it's the easiest place to find all types of fantasy football contests in the world. What if you want to play for high stakes? Well, they have a $6 million prize pool with their Fantasy Players Championship. They also have way too early best ball leagues that start in February and Dynasty leagues. They have the closest thing to a liquid market for orphans that there is in all of Dynasty. And the FFPC has sponsored us for half a decade because we are actually delivering information that can help fantasy gamers, and they're generating so much interest and bringing in so many new users, casual users even. The FFPC creates a unique experience where you can both compete against the best and make money. Use promo code UNDERWORLD to get $25 off your first team. $25 off your first team at the FFPC with promo code UNDERWORLD. Go get it! 10 burning questions. 10 burning questions for Zach Hiduk. Hidukin! You get that reference?
I do. I'm not like a big, fan of the show necessarily, but my friend is, and so I hear it. Yeah.
Right. Mortal Kombat. I think it's Ryu. Ryu, I believe, has the Hadouken. Now, beat reporters are insisting Kendre Williams is the clear primary back for the Rams. So, whatever that's worth, that's why you're here, to tell us how much that's worth. So, who takes over first? Blake Corum or Trey Benson?
I do think it's worth a lot. I think that if anybody's going to take over first, and you said rapid fire, so I'll try to be quick. Trey Benson takes over first if somebody does. However, I'm going to add the caveat that I don't think either Blake Corum or Trey Benson takes over without an injury. I'm very confident in that. James Conner is older. He's never finished a season healthy. So the most opportunity there for somebody to fill in is Trey Benson. So that to me makes the most sense. I know that Kendre Williams has had a little bit of a foot injury. That's all good now. So yeah, running backs get injured and we could see something happen. I think the Rams want Kendre Williams to be the guy. Yes, they drafted Blake Corum, but they did that to kind of safeguard who they have in Kendre Williams, give him a break every once in a while when necessary, but he's not going to be the guy I think Sean McVay is very stuck on. Kendre Williams, talked to Jordan Rodriguez, a week ago, and that was very much the answer and the vibe that I got. So I'm going to go with Trey Benson. Another caveat that I would add, though, it's still early. Michael Carter, though, has been taking reps for the second team ahead of Trey Benson, and Amari DeMarcado is seemingly likely to hold on to the third down role. Tyler Drake reporting that of Arizona Sports. So be careful in assuming that either one is going to take over the role in the Dynasty League, like both of them, given their price. And I like Trey Benson a lot. Probably going to get a shot, and it's probably just because he's a rookie that he's not like immediately worked himself to the top. But so if somebody's going to take over, it's going to be Trey Benson. But I'm not saying it's going to be week 3 or something like that you have him taking over.
Yeah, but here's the problem. I think you're absolutely right. The problem is, let's say that James Conner does suffer a high ankle sprain. Mm-hmm. Then what? What you're saying is it's not necessarily going to be the Trey Benson show because Michael Carter is there. Michael Carter is a 4th-round pick. Michael Carter has been productive. He's an all-purpose back, actually. He has the size and the receiving skills to do it all at a baseline level. Yeah. There's no one like that behind Blake Corum at all involved in Los Angeles.
That is 100%.
That is the difference, isn't it?
No. Yeah, and I do think Trey Benson has plenty of upside, but yeah, it is a little muddier when you're talking the the Cardinals. I don't think that ultimately if Michael Carter and Amari DeMarcado hold Trey Benson back from a career perspective, then there's already a problem. So you would expect him to eventually beat those guys out, but it may take more time, and he may not fill in as quickly, like you're mentioning,
Like
as
year
Blake Corum
one
might
could
have the
potentially
opportunity to do.
expire. Let's say that James
Yes.
Conner misses the second half. It could be like, week 16 we finally see full-time Trey Benson.
Yeah,
And yes,
that's a
Trey
real
Benson and Blake
possibility.
Corum could be in the same position heading into the 2025 season for Dynasty, but for this year, if Kendre Williams misses the second half, there's no threat to Blake Corum from Ronnie Rivers.
Yeah. That is definitely true. And we also know with the Rams that they have a tendency, Sean McVay does, to commit to one guy a little bit more heavily. So that is the upside case for Blake Corum. I just think that they do want to keep Kendre Williams around. And so even looking at next year, I think, likelihood that James Conner's around for the Cardinals is borderline 0. And the likelihood that Kendre Williams is around for the Rams next year, I think, is still fairly high. I know that's going to rub some people the wrong way, but I'm just telling you what I'm being told.
This is why the Blake Corum versus Trey Benson dynasty value is such an intriguing conversation, and there's not an easy answer.
Correct.
Why do Denver beat reporters hate Javonte Williams?
I think it depends on who you ask. I mean, he's part of the former regime. Sean Payton is very good with the media. So what he feels, and I don't know, I think some people were maybe unfair to some of the reporters or just referenced people, or like rumors, I think kind of abounded. And so I think, again, it depends on who you ask and who you're talking to, because Ben Albright, who's very, I guess blunt would be the word if you follow him on Twitter, Benjamin Albright of KOA, Colorado.
Does anyone still follow Benjamin Albright? Actually, you know what the beauty of 32 Beat Writers is? The beauty for everybody, this is the best. This is the best way to explain the value of 32 Beat Writers. They follow Benjamin Albright, so you don't have to.
Yeah, we follow everybody to get the best information that we can get, regardless of the source, as long as it's legitimate. So, yeah, we're going to give you what we believe is helpful. I'll put it that way. Yeah, I mean, I do think he's right here in this case. That the Javonte Williams obituaries were premature. He took the first reps in all of the drills, and that P. Ryan probably has the toughest hill to climb. Again, we line up what makes sense with what we are seeing in practice, with what the opinions are of the beat writers, and that all kind of makes sense to me. So, yeah, I know that there's definitely opinions about it, and Williams, I don't know if there's anything personal or anything like that, but, he came back probably too early last year, didn't perform as well. The team sucked. I mean, they didn't suck the whole time. They did, find a groove eventually. But it's just... it's a weird situation there, and I think that everybody wants to like the incoming rookies, with Estime in that sense.
Jaleel McLaughlin, Z for real?
Yeah, I think he's a good player for his role. I think that Sean Payton recognizes that he's going to have a role for sure. I believe he makes the roster for sure. He will have limited touches, so I don't know if he's a best ball guy or not. I'm definitely not taking him in a standard league, but
I think he's a best ball guy. I'll answer that question. He is a best ball.
Yeah.
Absolutely a best ball player.
Yeah. So he's going to have some unique roles. Sean Payton has said that multiple people may have a joker role, but if you're talking about like what role McLaughlin will have, it will be that type of role.
Joker role. Great. Nick Chubb, Jonathan Brooks, rehabbing ACL tears. When will they be activated?
This is, the real answer is we don't know. The answer that I'm going to give you, I just talked for Jonathan Brooks. I just talked, as I mentioned, with Mike Kay of the Charlotte Observer this morning. You can hear his answer on this exact question later today and tonight if you watch our live stream on X. At 32 Beat Writers, but he believes that they're going to try to get him in the cycle of things before cuts happen. So, that's like before the start of the season by a little bit. I don't think that you're going to see a full workload from either of these guys, regardless of when they come back for the first several weeks. Think of Jonathan Taylor last year with Zach Moss, who we were talking about earlier. I think that's going to be the way it goes. And the biggest thing to emphasize when it comes to Jonathan Brooks is they do view him as a future. They do view him as a key way of helping Bryce Young along. So they are going to do everything they can to protect that investment that they made in the draft and make sure that they do everything they can to bring him along slowly. So he's a guy I drafted in my Dynasty League. I'm very excited about his future. When he gets the workload, it's going to be all Jonathan Brooks, but it's going to be a little while before you see that for sure. I'm very confident in that. Nick Chubb, man, I don't know. You thought the guy was going to be out of the league based on the injury that he suffered. And, Cleveland didn't really give themselves much insurance when it comes to anybody else in that backfield. So it feels like they expect him back at a somewhat reasonable time. And, I mean, he is an animal. I don't have a good answer for you on that. I would assume, again, something similar to Brooks, though. And, their quarterback has not exactly performed amazing either all the time since that trade with Deshaun Watson. So they need him, and they're acting as though he's going to come back. So I don't know, but he should have a role, and they assume that he's going to be healthy enough to take it. So
Kamani Vidal, is he a cut candidate?
I don't
People are
think
drafting
so.
him in seasonal leagues. It could be a big mistake.
Yeah, well, I think it could be a mistake, and I also a cut candidate from the Chargers, probably not. I mean, there's no guarantee anybody makes a roster when you're drafted that low, so I want to preface with that.
But also, isn't it very possible that Jim Harbaugh has this like super ultra meritocracy and has no time, no inclination, no patience for day 3 picks? They don't pick up the playbook as fast as other players. They have Elijah Dotson on the roster. They have Jarrett Patterson, who's been getting the buzz. The guy that's getting the buzz is Jarrett Patterson and J.K. Dobbins. They signed Gus Edwards. They keep talking about how Gus Edwards is the primary back and that J.K. Dobbins is going to rotate in. And then there's also Isaiah Spiller.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned Dobbins, whose leg still does not appear to be like great based on the picture that we saw of that.
What was the picture?
It's just, the leg that he had injured with that Achilles just did not look as good as the other one. If that
there was a photo of the 2 legs side by side, and the one with the previously ruptured Achilles was smaller, or like was a misshapen calf or something?
Not misshapen, just not in shape. Not as good and not as big. Yeah, for sure. I mean, we saw that.
So he has 2 different, like he's like Rafael Nadal with 2 different size arms. J.K. Dobbins has 2 different size calves.
Yeah, I think, we saw that again with Kyler Murray last year. So I'm not saying I'm just saying that he's got a little ways to go. So there's room for opportunity. But I do think Gus Edwards will be the guy. I mean, you got Greg Roman there, who had those guys in Baltimore. And I think it's pretty obvious that it communicates when he brings those guys in, regardless of the fact that Dobbins is only guaranteed like $50,000 on his deal, that, he intends to use them. So I'm not drafting Kamani Vidal. If you're asking Max, who's part of our group, he's all over that and would, completely disagree with me. But I'm not in on him, and I'm definitely avoiding him for sure.
Of all the team situations around the league, this is the team situation that would make me the most nervous if I were hoarding a bunch of Vidal, because first-year coach that has a lot of brand equity, right? Has a lot of affinity around the league, around football. That was sort of a premium, splashy hire. He's going to be given the ability and the flexibility and the authority to kind of do what he wants with his roster and not care if a guy was drafted or not. And he's going to want to implement a culture. And if he needs to make an example of Kamani Vidal and at the expense of, a draft pick, oh well, right? Jarrett Patterson's working harder. Jarrett Patterson's making more plays in practice. Jarrett Patterson has better ball security. Jarrett Patterson has better pass blocking. Jarrett Patterson is going to help our team more. We're keeping Jarrett Patterson on the roster, and I'm sorry, I'm not sorry. Kamani Vidal, he's going to be a game day inactive for sure to start the season. That I know. Whether he even makes the team is up for dispute. Right?
Yeah.
This is not a normal
it.
situation. This is not your traditional coach general manager relationship. This is Jim Harbaugh in year one. You can imagine him wanting to make an example of a player, and what better unit to make an example of than the running back room? Use the running back room, the most disposable assets.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see what happens for sure. You're right in the personality of the coach there. And I think that if you see something crazy, you shouldn't be surprised. I will say that. Yeah.
What about Quentin Johnston getting traded? That's another thing I can see. I can see him going to the front office and being like, I can't work with this player. Please do whatever you need to do. I understand that you can't cut him because he has value as a first rounder. There are teams around the league that I'm sure want to give him a chance, want to kick the tires. So if you want to get back a 6th rounder for him, great. I'm cutting our 6th round running back, so let's at least get a 6th rounder in return by trading Quentin Johnston because I have no use for this guy.
Yeah, I think, this, like what you said, I don't know. I don't know if I believe that he does have anybody who really wants him. He was the last wide receiver taken in that draft at that spot that highly, I think for a reason, because there are concerns, and he didn't do anything to assuage those concerns. And in fact, he did everything he could. It felt like, and again, I don't have anything personally against the guy, so I feel bad saying this, but he struggled is a light way of putting it. And now the team has come out, the coach has come out and, said that, they think he's gotten too much of a bad rap and all of that. Maybe that's true in some cases, but in general, I don't think he's going to be a super relevant part of this team. And I don't know how tradable he really is because, yeah, somebody might want him, but at the end of the day, they're either going to use him or they're going to cut him at some point. Maybe you see it's just a weird time of year to trade guys. Maybe you see it closer to the start of the season or maybe, after the season is over. For this year, I think he's a Charger. I don't know that he plays very much, though.
He won't. He certainly won't play as much as Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin's going to own the slot this year. That's what we're hearing. That's the kind of camp news that I pay attention to. Am I right that that's the kind of thing I should be latching at? That's actionable. Do you agree with that? Chris Godwin out of the slot, get excited.
Yeah, I think it matters. If you're worried about the concern, like if you're having a concern about Tampa, it's that Baker Mayfield doesn't have Dave Canales anymore, and we're curious to see how that goes. Now, the offense was not exactly stellar, and Mike Evans is the guy that Baker Mayfield can put it up to and just hope and pray that he comes down with it, and most of the time he does. Chris Godwin was miscast, I think, and the team recognized that. So, yes, moving him into the slot closer, to the quarterback and in a spot that he's more comfortable does matter. I think it does bode well. Same time, I don't know, man, what on earth the Bucs are going to be. I don't think the addition of Bucky Irving is going to change the team's offensive outlook. And Jalen McMillan, that's where things get interesting, is to see what his role becomes, if he can push anybody as a rookie for playing time in that similar slot role or not. So, it's a good thing for sure. But, man, I don't know what to think of Baker Mayfield, and I'm not sure how hype I can get if he's still the quarterback there. I don't know.
The buzz around Michael Wilson feels real to me. Does it feel real to you?
I think it is. He's one of those guys. I talked with Tyler Drake last year before camp, and he predicted, this is the type of guy who's going to be making plays that end up on Twitter in camp. And that's happened both years. And to be fair to Michael Wilson, he did, show some things last year, and I think we can be excited about it. We can feel like the addition of Marvin Harrison Jr. takes away from opportunity at the wide receiver spot, but in my opinion, it just takes the pressure of being the number one guy off of Michael Wilson. So Zay Jones is the guy I'd be worried about. He has gotten some love recently, and obviously he's not long for the football world either. But if I'm worried about my Michael Wilson shares, Zay Jones is the reason. But Michael Wilson, I think I do believe in. And they should have a pretty good offense this year. So I'm taking shots every once in a while on Michael Wilson for sure.
But not Kadarius Toney, right? Kadarius, he's Tavon Austin. Isn't he? Have you ever seen two players more similar with a player going down the exact same career path, like one for one, day for day, news for news, like outcome for outcome, like moment in time? I mean, this is like it's a direct facsimile, a one-for-one facsimile of the Tavon Austin career living out in the form of Kadarius Toney. The same freaking guy.
Yeah, I was trying to get some more, I was trying to come up with another example or something like that. But it's just, the whole getting snaps in the backfield now, even if the Chiefs are desperate enough to do that, I mean, his fate is basically sealed. Again, it's weird. I have a feeling that he's going to make the roster. I don't think he should or how or why, but he's one of those guys, again, that's just talented. And they're going to try to find some way to get him the ball. But you can't rely on him. You can't use him in a way that, would be traditional. And Andy Reid is the type of guy to use a non-traditional player. But, backfield snaps for most guys, like if you're Deebo Samuel or Malachi Corley, I like to hear that. If you're somebody like Kadarius Toney, that spells the end of your career.
Percy Harvin did such a huge disservice to so many players, thinking that they could do that, right? And it's just not translatable. Like that was the ultimate red herring player, right? Oh, he might be Percy Harvin. No. Tavon Austin is the archetype that most of these players are going to mimic and never give you what you want. Those are the sell candidates of all time. Dawson Knox is getting some buzz, and that he's the reason why Dalton Kincaid's not. I mean, Dalton Kincaid's going to be held back by Dawson Knox. I don't see it. I can see Dawson Knox vulturing some touchdowns. Absolutely, I can see a throw to the tight end, and you have all this Kincaid, and you're like, yes, and then it's Dawson Knox. You're like, oh. And I can see these moments happening throughout the season. Yes, Dawson Knox is athletic. Dawson Knox is an all-purpose, super versatile tight end. He's a good player, but he's not Dalton Kincaid. And that it would matter more to me if there were more options to compete for targets with. But there's just not in Buffalo. So fine. Like I've lived through like Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez both being fantasy relevant. I'm not worried about it, man. We've seen multiple tight ends on the same team be fantasy relevant before. I don't even think Dawson Knox rises to that level where he's going to be fantasy relevant, but I don't believe he's going to be cannibalizing in a meaningful way from Dalton Kincaid. And yet I'm hearing, Dalton Kincaid he may be pulled off the field because of Dawson Knox. What, dude? What? Zach, what?
Yeah, I think it depends on the formation. I don't believe that if you're asking, is he going to hold Dalton Kincaid back? I think the answer is definitely no. Yeah, they have different roles. So when you see that he may come off the field, that may definitely happen depending on the formation. But you're going to see Dalton Kincaid play. I mean, we've heard the big slot. You talk Kyle Pitts, you talk Kelsey, you talk all those type of guys. I don't think Knox is going to be the reason that Kincaid has a bad fantasy season. If Kincaid has a bad fantasy season, they need Kincaid to perform. Keon Coleman, as great as he may be, still only one guy, has some, inconsistencies to his game that are of concern. So, as most players do in some capacity, but Dalton Kincaid, he's going to be a very key part of this offense. He was a key part of this offense last year, and there's no reason to expect that he won't be again.
I have 75% chance Keon Coleman is a bust.
It definitely worries me.
Thank you. Taysom Hill, is he the biggest steal at tight end this year?
Or quarterback. Are you playing him at quarterback or tight end? Yeah. I was really disappointed when I didn't get him in a league that I was in. There has been a lot of rumblings, not as much very recently, but especially early in like OTAs and things of that nature, with the whole we're going to use Taysom Hill this way and that way, and he's not going to have a perfectly defined role. I think something like that just came out very recently. And then, we saw lots of reports of he's getting used all over. And I do think that's going to happen. I think the Saints are kind of desperate. My sleeper head coach that might get fired sooner than we think is Dennis Allen with the Saints. Not that I'm rooting for anybody to get fired, but they have to win that division this year, or what are they doing with their lives? So
Dennis Allen took that job knowing it was a 2-year deal, knowing that he was not going to be getting. He knew it. The Carr Allen regime. This was a microwaved 2-year window of mediocrity.
Yeah. And I think you're right about that. I think that's what I'm projecting personally. Again, we might see some better connections with Olave than we did last year with Derek Carr. But yeah, I mean, you're going to see Taysom Hill. They're going to try to use him, and it does not take a lot of fantasy points to be relevant at the tight end position. And so, yeah, I'm taking him where I can grab him, and I feel pretty good about it.
Just another reason to fade Kendre Miller. Fade Kendre Miller. I am out on Kendre Miller, and Taysom Hill is part of the reason. Now I'll get you out of here, buddy. You did it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Bold prediction. Now I believe you might have two. You might have a spicy prediction and then a bold prediction. So go spicy and then bold.
So we got the bold at the top and spicy just below that.
I would say start off with spicy.
Yeah.
A little spicy,
all right.
a little spice.
Yeah.
Maybe wide receiver X outscores wide receiver Y or comes close. And then maybe something a little spicier. Something bold might be, the guy we think is the best player at his position actually won't finish in the top 3 or will be usurped by some other player. So that's the type of predictions we're looking for.
Yeah, my spicy take would be that Kendre Williams should be a first rounder. Right now he's not. I think his ADP is around 17. I think Puka Nacua is too high. I think Cooper Kupp is too low. Cooper Kupp is at wide receiver 22. Puka Nacua is at wide receiver 7. I understand that Puka Nacua had a nuclear season last year. Probably going to be the best season of his career. Wouldn't be a bad thing if it was. But it's just really hard to repeat something like that. And you know what? Cooper Kupp was injured. And it took a little while, and they needed to ride Puka, and so they did. And now you've got a healthy Kyren, a healthy Cooper Kupp, and a healthy Puka Nacua, and a Matthew Stafford that's a little more satisfied with his contract situation. So I think you're going to see an increase in Cooper Kupp usage as opposed to last year, something a little bit closer to normal. Even if Puka Nacua is still the one and outscores him on the season, things are going to be a lot closer, and Kendre Williams needs to be drafted where Puka is currently at like spot 10, 11, 12, somewhere around there.
And then?
Bold prediction, Trey McBride outscored Sam Laporta. I think that the Cardinals offense is going to be is a little bit underrated. I know people are excited about, their new wide receiver toy, but I think they might be forgetting a little bit about Trey McBride. He is being drafted as tight end 3, in fairness to the broader crowd here. But Sam Laporta, you can't just assume he's going to score the amount of points that he did last year. Had an incredible rookie season, but a ton of it was touchdown dependent, as the tight end position on a week-to-week basis is. But, Trey McBride, I feel like, has just as much of an opportunity, could be on just as good of an offense with Kyler Murray leading that show with fully healthy at this point of the year. So that is my prediction. I think we're a little too confident in Sam Laporta, and as much as people believe in Trey McBride, I think there might be a little bit more there than people expect.
Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, not dead yet. Dalton Kincaid, ready to go nuclear. Trey McBride showed himself to be elite last year, and for these reasons, especially the emergence of Amon-Ra St. Brown as the true GOAT at wide receiver, Sam Laporta is not a top 3 fantasy tight end in 2024.
Yeah.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to playerprofiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, data analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.